Welcome to C programming tutorial. This tutorial is continuation of the previous tutorial. We were talking about do while loop. The part 1 of this tutorial is in the previous video, so if you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend that you watch that video. This is just the part 2 of that, the continuation of that tutorial. So we were talking about do while loop, and we are about to write a program that would basically allow the user to enter numbers one after the other. So the user enters a number, then we ask again for entering the number, then we ask again, and so on, and we keep on asking the number until the user enters 0, at which point we are supposed to output the sum of all the numbers that the user has entered. Okay, so we notice that we have to do this. We don't have fixed number of count that we have to do this. So we notice first thing that we have to do something repeatedly. What is that thing? We have to keep asking the user to enter the some number. So excuse me. So entering number, that's what the thing that we have to do repeatedly. Okay, so we have to use loops because we saw that loops will allow us to basically do something repeatedly, and then we saw that we have to do it at least once. So we saw that basically there is no fixed number of times that we have to do it. So for loop, we don't use for loop unless we know how many times you have to use how many times you have to execute the loop. Now you could still use for loop, but let's keep for loop for only the time when we know how many times that loop has to be executed. So we are not going to use for loop. So then we are left with do while loop and the while loop. And how do we determine which one to use? We have to do this repetitive work at least once, which means that we have to at least ask the user to enter one number. The user may enter the first number as 0, but you have to ask the user at least once. So if that's the case, so we use do while and not the while. So we are going to use do while to basically solve our problem. So what are we going to do? We are going to use this do while statement. So what is the thing that we have to do repeatedly? We have to put that inside the body of the do while. What is it? We have to ask the user to enter a number. So how do you ask the user to enter a number? You write enter a number on the screen. And how do we do that? We learned before that we use printf, and then we followed by the message that we have to write. This will print on the screen, but it won't ask the user to enter the number. To get the input from the user, in one of the previous tutorials titled inputting, in that tutorial we learned that how to ask for data from the user. So here we are going to use that, and the function to use is scanf. And then since it's a number, the format specifier is %d, and then we have to enter it into some variable. So let's call that variable num, okay, for number. And before you use this variable, we have to declare it, okay. So we will declare this number here, int num. Okay, so this thing will continuously run, and this body of the while loop will continue to run and keep on getting the input from the user. So how are we going to stop it? What is our stopping condition? This is what it's going to be here. So, well, not the stopping condition, the condition that will keep on making it run. What is it? For as you have to ask this question: how long do I have to keep doing this? How long do I have to enter the number? For as long as I do not enter 0. Okay, as long as I do not enter 0, in other words, as long as the number that user has entered is not equal to 0. And if you don't remember not equal to, this is how you write not equal to. We learned this in the tutorial titled as conditions. So do while num is not equal to 0. Do this while num is not equal to 0. As soon as number is equal to 0, this condition will become false and we'll exit out. We'll come here. So what do we have to do when the user enters 0? We have to print the sum of all the numbers. So how are we going to do the sum of all these numbers? Well, we don't even the only number that we have is the last number that user entered. We don't even have the numbers that the user entered before this number. So how do we print the sum? Well, so we have to be a little bit clever here. Okay, what we are going to do is we are going to keep adding those numbers as the user enters. So what do? Let's define another number, sum. Okay, another variable, sum, and let's initialize it to 0. Or you could initialize it right here, and that's a good practice to initialize right at the time when you declare it. So let's do this. We declare another variable, sum, as integer, and we initialize it to 0. And what we are going to do is to basically keep adding those numbers into the previous sum, whatever the sum is. Okay, and what do? We have to, you cannot write this sum plus num. Okay, it will just add it. There is no place to keep this value. What do? We put it back into sum. And as we learned before, in algebra, this may be a wrong thing to do. It doesn't make sense. Sum is equal to sum plus num. It doesn't make sense. But in computer programming, it does make sense. And what it says is basically you add sum, the previous sum or the current sum value, whatever the sum is, and then add the number that the user has entered and store that number into sum as the new number. So now as the user keeps on entering, this statement will keep on adding and putting it into the variable sum. So at the end, when we exit out of the loop, we already have the sum of all those numbers in the variable sum. So all we have to do is to print out that variable. So how do we print out that variable? Printf the sum of all the numbers is equal to %d. This is where the number is going to go, the sum is going to go. This is the format specifier. \n will basically bring it to the next line, the cursor to the next line, and then we write which variable we have to print here. Which one is it, sum or num? Sum. That's right. And that's it. So let's give this program a try. Oops, let's see if it's running. No, what's wrong? F9 here. Sorry about that. So enter a number. See, the program started running and it asks to enter the number. This is the very first time. So the program comes here, num, it declares a variable num, then it declares a variable sum, makes it equal to 0, and then comes here, displays this enter a number, this message, and then scanf is asking for the user to enter the number. So let's enter the number, 3. Okay, and 3 is not equal to 0, so it should not stop, and it should ask for another input, another number. So see, enter a number, good, because it came here. The value of num was 3, which is not equal to 0, so this condition is true. And then it went back. So when the condition of the while loop is true, it executes the body again. So it executes the body again and asks for another number, 2. Still it's not 0, so it asks for another number, 3. Okay. So it keeps on. It's gonna keep on asking for new numbers because as long as I don't enter 0, okay, and it keeps on adding this into sum. And why we are not seeing sum here, the value of sum? Because we are not printing the value of sum here. We are going to print the value of sum outside this loop when the loop is gonna exit. And how the loop is gonna exit? When I'm going to enter 0. So let's enter 0. See? So when we entered 0, added that number which is 0, so it's not going to change the sum, and it gets here and then it says is not equal to 0. No, that's false. 0 is equal to 0, so this condition is false. The loop exits out and then it prints the sum of all the numbers is equal to 8. So check it, 3 plus 2 is 5 plus 3 is 8. Ta-da! The program runs fine. So that concludes our this tutorial. Please keep watching them. Thank you.